Photographer Barry King stopped a stranger skating along Venice Beach in 1989. Marcus Schenkenberg had left Sweden with little money, crossed several American cities, and reached Los Angeles with no connection to fashion. 2 years later, Bruce Weber photographed him for a Calvin Klein jeans project that occupied 116 pages of Vanity Fair. One shower image made Marcus internationally recognizable, drenched, exposed, and holding a pair of jeans across his body. Fashion had discovered that a male model could carry desire, celebrity, and a global campaign at once. Marcus became one of the few men of the 1990s whose name traveled beyond the runway. Then the market shifted. Designers favored anonymous faces, while actors, musicians, and athletes took the campaigns once capable of creating model stars. Marcus kept working, but the role he had helped define was disappearing around him. Marcus Lodewijk Schenkenberg van Meerop was born on August 4, 1968, in Solna, just outside Stockholm. His parents were Dutch, and he grew up in Sweden without any connection to fashion. Sports took up much of his teenage life, especially basketball. He also studied economics for 3 years, partly because numbers came naturally to him and partly because his parents hoped he would choose a stable profession. Marcus had no settled plan. Fashion had not entered the picture. Travel interested him more. In the late 1980s, he left Sweden for the United States with a close friend and very little money. They moved through several cities, including New York, Orlando, New Orleans, and Los Angeles, taking whatever work they could find. In Los Angeles, Marcus looked after 2 children in the Hollywood Hills and worked with dogs. The jobs gave him enough freedom to spend weekends at Venice Beach, where he often skated. That routine changed in 1989 when photographer Barry King noticed him there. King approached Marcus, arranged a test shoot, and helped place the photographs in front of people who could offer him work. The images led to agency representation and jobs in Europe. New York followed, and boss models became an important part of his rise during the early 1990s. The timing worked in his favor. Female supermodels had already shown how much value a recognizable face could carry. Male advertising was also becoming more interested in the body itself. Marcus stood well over 6 feet and had a broad, athletic build that separated him from the narrower runway figures common at the time. He looked powerful on camera without appearing tied to any sport or profession. Later profiles compressed those years into a cleaner discovery story. An unknown man crossed Venice Beach, a photographer spotted him, and fashion opened its doors. That version left out the uncertainty that brought Marcus to California and the ordinary work that supported him there. He had already left home, moved through several cities, and built a life far from Sweden before anyone offered him a campaign. Modeling gave those unsettled years a sudden direction. Within a short time, the former economics student and Hollywood caretaker had become a working model whose appearance could carry him across international markets. Male models had achieved recognition before Marcus. John Pearson, Jeff Aquilon, Michael Ives, and others had appeared in major magazines and campaigns. Calvin Klein had already used male bodies in provocative advertising, often through photographers such as Bruce Weber. Marcus entered an existing tradition, then pushed the desirable male model into the center of early 1990s supermodel culture with unusual force. For much of menswear history, the model served the garment first. A man stood straight, wore the suit well, and allowed the tailoring to lead the image. Fragrance and underwear campaigns gave male bodies more room, though the men themselves rarely received the long-term personality building given to famous female models. Marcus brought a different physical presence. His height, shoulders, and muscular frame became part of the advertisement rather than simple support beneath the clothes. He looked athletic without carrying the identity of an athlete. Luxury brands could use him as polished, controlled, and sensual at the same time. Beside a well-known female model, he held equal visual weight. That physical clarity brought work quickly, yet it narrowed the version of Marcus presented to the public. Profiles returned to his height, build, discovery, and later his romantic life. His economics studies and language skills appeared as side details because they did not explain what the camera was selling. Advertising depends on immediate recognition. Marcus could communicate strength, polish, and sensuality before a viewer read the brand name. Photographers and designers repeated those qualities because the image worked across countries and publications. The repetition made him memorable, while leaving less room for the person who traveled constantly, adjusted to different creative teams, and learned how to perform for a still camera. That distinction became important as his career expanded. The public met a finished physical ideal, while the work required to maintain it remained invisible. New assignments could change the clothes, setting, or photographer, yet the same promise stayed underneath. Calvin Klein would give that promise its widest audience and turn Marcus from a successful model into a figure people could recognize outside fashion. Marcus's breakthrough arrived in 1991 through Calvin Klein jeans. Bruce Weber photographed him with Carré Otis for a black-and-white advertising portfolio centered on a rock concert and the charged hours surrounding it. The finished project appeared as a 116-page supplement with the October issue of Vanity Fair. The portfolio looked less like a standard denim catalog than a visual diary. Motorcycles, leather, crowded rooms, beds, showers, and bodies moved through a loose sequence with very little text. The clothes existed inside a larger atmosphere of youth, music, sweat, and sexual freedom. Calvin Klein had spent years building campaigns around provocation and suggestion. This project gave that approach enough space to create an entire world. Marcus emerged as the portfolio's strongest male figure. The image that drew the most attention showed him drenched beneath a shower, unclothed, with a pair of jeans held across the lower part of his body. He is often described as wearing the wet denim, though the photograph was more exposed than that. The jeans served as both the product and his only cover, leaving Marcus's body to carry most of the image. The campaign attracted attention immediately. Coverage focused on the nudity, the sexual atmosphere, the size of the supplement, and its lack of conventional advertising copy. Limited distribution also increased demand for copies. The shower image is sometimes described as having been banned from American television, though its real impact came through magazines, posters, and public displays rather than a television commercial. Its visual language had a history. Bruce Weber had already photographed men for Calvin Klein, and the brand had spent the 1980s pushing the limits of desire in advertising. Brooke Shields had turned Calvin Klein jeans into a national controversy in 1980. Underwear and fragrance campaigns had already treated men as objects of attention. Marcus arrived when that language could create broader male fame. His body looked heavier and more athletic than many of the leaner men appearing in editorials. Against plain denim and black and white photography, that physical presence became the main event. The shower stripped away the usual symbols used to explain masculinity. There was no suit, car, workplace, or sport. Nothing in the frame gave him a role beyond being seen. The photograph sold the body directly, with the jeans placed at the point where product and exposure met. Once the supplement circulated, the effect was immediate. Magazines treated Marcus as a recognizable name, brands wanted him, and viewers remembered the man beneath the water. The photograph gave him a signature before most male models had one and opened the next stage of his career. Other assignments changed the clothes, setting, and photographer, but none had to introduce him again. From that point forward, every booking added to the reputation Calvin Klein had already created around the world. After Calvin Klein, Marcus moved into the highest level of fashion advertising. His major credits included Versace, Giorgio Armani, Donna Karan, Valentino, Iceberg, and other international labels. Each house used him differently. Calvin Klein had made him raw and exposed. Armani could make him controlled and polished. Versace pushed him towards something larger, more theatrical, and more openly glamorous. Versace became one of the strongest partnerships of his career. Gianni Versace understood the value of a recognizable model and returned to the same faces across campaigns. Viewers were expected to remember the people wearing the clothes, not simply the clothes themselves. In the fall 1993 couture campaign, Richard Avedon photographed Marcus with Stephanie Seymour. Seymour already belonged to the inner circle of female supermodels, and the image treated Marcus as her equal rather than a supporting figure. He carried enough presence to share the frame without disappearing beside her. Later, Versace work placed him with other defining women of the period, including Cindy Crawford. Those pairings gave Marcus access to the visual world that had made the female supermodels famous. That placement marked rare status for a male model. Marcus appeared beside women whose names carried editorial and commercial power, and the images assumed he could meet them on equal terms. Repeated Versace bookings also gave him continuity across seasons, allowing audiences to connect one campaign with the next instead of treating him as a new face. Magazines and entertainment media followed. People included him in its 1992 selection of beautiful public figures, placing him before an audience far larger than the fashion press. His name entered celebrity reporting at a time when male models usually remained invisible outside the industry. The phrase, "first male supermodel," began following Marcus during these years. It captured the scale of his fame, even though earlier men had built careers, and John Pearson would later receive the same description. Marcus belongs among the first male models promoted with the celebrity language surrounding the women called supermodels in the early 1990s. His work stayed central, while his appearance, personality, and private life entered the public package. Profiles also called him the world's highest-paid male model. The title matched the scale of his bookings, though no reliable public record confirms a precise ranking. Casting director James Scully later recalled writing checks worth hundreds of thousands of dollars during the era of Marcus and Mark Vanderloo, placing both men among the most valuable male models of the period. By the middle of the decade, Marcus had reached the top of male modeling. Campaigns, photographers, mainstream coverage, and exceptional fees confirmed his position. Success answered how high a man could rise in the supermodel era. Longevity became the harder question in a market offering women more ways to extend fame. The supermodel system of the 1990s had been built around women. Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, Christy Turlington, Claudia Schiffer, and their peers became personalities far beyond fashion pages. Their names sold magazines. Music videos and television carried them into homes that never followed designer collections. Beauty contracts kept the same faces in public view for years. Marcus entered that culture at a time when the word supermodel already carried power. He shared campaigns with famous women, appeared on entertainment programs, and became recognizable outside menswear. Designers could place him beside an established female star and expect the audience to notice both people. His position still differed from theirs. Cosmetics, skincare, hair products, lingerie, fragrance, and long-term beauty contracts could keep a woman's face in circulation for years. Menswear offered fewer equivalent arrangements. A successful male model might dominate one season, then depend on another booking to renew the same level of attention. That gap shaped Marcus's next moves. Television, fitness, publishing, and licensed products offered ways to keep his name active between campaigns, but each required a separate audience and a new commercial identity. His modeling fame opened doors. It did not provide the built-in continuity available to women whose beauty contracts linked them to one brand across several years. For Marcus, the challenge was less about reaching the top than remaining there after fashion moved on to another look. He had already proved that a male model could become internationally recognizable. The harder task was turning that recognition into a career that no longer depended on the next photograph. His work in European television began to answer that problem by giving viewers a speaking personality instead of another silent image across markets that already knew his face. The projects ahead would test how much of Marcus's fame could transfer into formats where appearance alone was insufficient. Speaking on camera, selling products under his own name, and carrying entertainment work required a different relationship with audiences. Those moves exposed how much his celebrity remained tied to fashion's original image. By the end of the decade, Marcus had become one of fashion's most recognizable men while remaining dependent on an industry built around seasonal attention. His next burst of visibility came through Pamela Anderson. The relationship widened his audience, yet it also gave the press an easier label than the career he had spent years building. Marcus's relationship with Pamela Anderson brought him into a wider celebrity market near the end of 2000. Anderson had spent the previous decade across television, magazines, tabloids, and constant public coverage surrounding her marriage to Tommy Lee. Anyone close to her entered an entertainment story that moved much faster than fashion. By then, he had spent nearly a decade working for major houses and appearing in international media. Viewers who knew nothing about Versace or Calvin Klein campaigns now saw his name in celebrity coverage. They dated from 2000 into 2001 and became engaged. Their connection also entered their professional lives. Iceberg cast them together in advertising, using the immediate recognition of a famous couple. Marcus appeared on Anderson's television series VIP around the same period. Fashion, television, and tabloid interest briefly met in one public image. Entertainment coverage needed a quick introduction, and Marcus was usually reduced to the Swedish model, the Calvin Klein model, or Pamela Anderson's fiancé. Those labels were easy for a general audience to understand, but they pushed a decade of campaigns and international work into the background. The shift showed how quickly fashion achievement could disappear behind a familiar celebrity narrative. The Iceberg advertisements used the contrast effectively. Anderson brought weekly television exposure and constant tabloid interest. Marcus brought fashion credibility and a body already associated with major advertising. Together, they created an image that traveled beyond either industry. The attention also moved at Anderson's pace, with news stories appearing far more often than a seasonal campaign could provide. The engagement ended in 2001. Their representatives described the separation as friendly, and entertainment coverage soon moved toward the next story in Anderson's life. Marcus returned to the visibility available through fashion, television, and European media, where his career already had an audience. Menswear casting was already changing when the relationship ended, placing Marcus's career shift inside a wider industry movement. Celebrity coverage still reorganized his public identity. During the engagement, his connection to Anderson became the first fact many viewers learned about him. After the separation, coverage returned to his own work in fashion and television. The experience gave Marcus wider recognition without providing a platform he controlled. A longer career would depend on projects built around his name rather than the next campaign or relationship. Marcus began extending his career before the relationship with Pamela Anderson brought him into broader celebrity coverage. In 1997, Universe Publishing released Marcus Schenkenberg, New Rules. The book contained more than 100 photographs alongside interviews, personal material, and discussions of style, fitness, beauty, and changing ideas about masculinity. Gianni Versace contributed to the project, tying the book to one of the strongest professional relationships in Marcus's career. New Rules presented Marcus as more than a face hired to sell someone else's clothes. The subject matter stayed close to the qualities that had made him famous. Yet the format gave him room to speak with his own name on the cover. Fitness, grooming, image, and confidence had become increasingly visible parts of male consumer culture during the 1990s. Marcus already stood near the center of that shift. The book placed him inside the conversation rather than leaving him as a silent example. Music became the next experiment. He recorded La Chica Marita, a dance track released around the end of the decade. The song appeared on the soundtrack album for Flawless in 2000. It never developed into a long recording career, though it showed Marcus testing another kind of public identity at a time when models were moving into film, television, music, and branded products. Screen work proved more durable. Marcus appeared in films, guest roles, entertainment programs, and reality formats in Europe and the United States. His work in European television became especially useful because he could move between languages and markets. He had spent years traveling for fashion, and that experience translated naturally into hosting and appearances that required more than posing for a camera. Fitness remained the clearest extension of his modeling image. His Body Secrets program was released as a German fitness DVD in 2010. The project turned the discipline behind his physique into a product people could follow at home. A signature fragrance had arrived through LR Health and Beauty in 2009. Jewelry, clothing, and underwear collaborations followed over time. Licensing changed the financial structure. Campaign work paid Marcus to represent another company for a limited period. A fragrance, clothing line, or other product carrying his own name could continue producing income after the original launch. Marcus later spoke positively about the money generated through those agreements, even though the projects received less international attention than Calvin Klein or Versace. The ventures appeared across different years and markets rather than as one coordinated launch. That scattered pattern limited how strongly they could redefine him, yet it kept Marcus active in entertainment and commerce, while fashion bookings became less central to his work. The audience was smaller than the one reached by Calvin Klein or Versace, yet the ventures reduced his dependence on major fashion bookings. They also showed that he was preparing for a career beyond the body that had made him famous. By then, the industry was moving toward younger runway silhouettes and celebrities with audiences already built. Marcus was creating several smaller routes forward as the original path continued narrowing around him. By the end of the 1990s, menswear casting had started moving away from the physical ideal Marcus represented. The shift arrived gradually through changes in tailoring, photography, casting, and celebrity culture. Broad athletic bodies remained visible in advertising, though the runway began favoring a younger and narrower silhouette. Hedi Slimane's arrival at Dior Homme in 2000 gave that change a clear visual form. His slim tailoring demanded lean bodies and helped push menswear toward sharper lines, narrower frames, and a more fragile kind of masculinity. The muscular build associated with Marcus and several men from the early 1990s began to look linked to an earlier fashion moment. Casting adjusted to the clothes. Runways filled with models selected for shape, mood, and attitude rather than public recognition. James Scully later described the 1990s as the final period when top male models occupied a real place in American popular culture. He remembered Marcus and his peers appearing on entertainment television, entering gossip columns, and receiving fees that reflected their name value. By the 2000s, many prestige campaigns were moving toward actors, musicians, and athletes. Male beauty never disappeared from fashion advertising. Brands continued hiring handsome men and continued using the body to sell desire. The business around those images changed. A lesser-known model could serve the designer's idea without carrying a competing public identity. A celebrity arrived with an audience already built through music, film, television, or sports. The professional male model developed into a mainstream star became harder to sustain between those two options. Calvin Klein offers the clearest comparison. In 1991, the company gave Marcus the center of a vast print project and allowed Bruce Weber's photographs to create recognition around him. In 2015, Calvin Klein cast Justin Bieber with Lara Stone for jeans and underwear advertising. Bieber entered the campaign with global fame, a huge online following, and a public persona formed outside fashion. The brand could use that attention immediately. The two campaigns belonged to different decades and different media systems. Bieber did not take Marcus's job, and Calvin Klein never presented him as a direct successor. The contrast still shows how the company's approach had changed. Marcus entered the earlier campaign as a model whose image became famous through the work. Bieber entered the later campaign as a celebrity whose fame increased the campaign's reach. Age explained only part of the pressure on Marcus. The market that greeted him in 1991 used magazines, billboards, television, and repeated campaigns to build recognition. By the 2000s, runway casting favored less familiar faces, while prestige advertising borrowed attention from people already famous elsewhere. That left fewer routes for a professional male model to become a mainstream personality through modeling alone. The language of Marcus's Calvin Klein work remained visible, but the person carrying it became easier to change each season. As Marcus moved into television, licensing, and European media, fashion continued using the appeal that had launched him without rebuilding the career around another model. Marcus continued working after his peak years through European fashion projects, television, reality formats, interviews, and public events. His career spread across several markets, with growing emphasis on entertainment and lifestyle work as interest in 1990s fashion began returning around him. Fashion history still places him among the defining male models of that decade. Vogue and other fashion publications have included him in retrospectives about the men who shaped 1990s imagery. Those accounts place him beside Tyson Beckford, Mark Vanderloo, Cameron Alborzian, Jason Lewis, and others who combined major fashion work with recognition beyond the runway. Each man occupied the category differently. Beckford became closely tied to Ralph Lauren and later developed a strong television presence. Vanderloo built a long association with Hugo Boss. David Gandy became identified with Dolce & Gabbana through a more classical version of masculinity. Sean O'Pry rose during the digital era through campaigns for several major houses. John Cortajarena combined fashion, acting, and a highly recognizable personal style. Marcus occupies a specific place in that lineage. His rise came before agencies and brands had a settled way to manage male supermodel fame, and before social media could keep a model visible between assignments. Recognition grew through repeated campaigns, magazine circulation, billboards, and television appearances. That system gave a small number of men enormous visibility, then offered limited support once tastes changed. The models who followed inherited a category audiences could already understand, though they entered different versions of the business. Some built long associations with one house. Others combined modeling with acting or developed direct audiences online. Those varied paths clarify how many separate forms the male model career took after the concentrated celebrity of the early 1990s became less common. Marcus remained most strongly associated with the athletic masculinity of his decade. Later coverage still returns to Calvin Klein, Pamela Anderson, and the title First Male Supermodel. Those references can make his career appear frozen in one period, even though he continued working through fashion, television, licensing, and public appearances. European media has kept him more visible, while renewed interest in 1990s imagery has brought the campaigns back into circulation. Marcus remains present in fashion archives and retrospectives, although the distance between his peak fame and his current profile is real. No younger model simply took his place. The industry divided the role among anonymous runway faces, professional models with narrower recognition, and celebrities hired for their existing audiences. Marcus stayed active while the position he once occupied became rarer. His later career therefore reads less like a collapse than a long adjustment to a market that had stopped producing male stars through the same route. That distinction defines his place today. Marcus Schenkenberg entered fashion through a chance meeting on Venice Beach and reached its highest level through an image powerful enough to outlive the campaign that created it. Calvin Klein turned his body into a public identity. Versace and other houses expanded that identity until Marcus became one of the few male models whose name carried meaning beyond fashion pages. He spent the following years trying to make that recognition last through television, fitness, fragrance, music, books, and licensed products. Those projects extended his career, yet the shower photograph remained the image returned to. Fashion changed around him. Runway casting favored slimmer, less recognizable men, while major campaigns increasingly went to actors, musicians, and athletes who arrived with audiences already built. Marcus kept working, but the path that had turned him into a star became less common.